Greetings. The purpose of this video is to guide client care workers through the process of receiving referrals in SCIA and taking action on them. We're going to go at a very slow pace to make sure that all users have the time to follow along. If you do have questions, you can always email SCIA@redcross.org or sheltering@redcross.org, and perhaps rewatching this video would be helpful. The very first step is to go to SCIA. The way you get there is it's redcross.org/SCIA. That's going to load a login screen that allows us to use our volunteer connection credentials to get in. In this example, I'm actually going to go to the SCIA sandbox, and this is a place that all of us can go to practice, and it's SCIA-training after redcross.org. So redcross.org/SCIA-training. It's identical to the SCIA website that we use during relief operations, and it's a place that we can practice. So I've put my volunteer connection credentials in, and that brings me to the front page, which says Tools. Now, what we need to do is to go to the shelter that we want to see which referrals exist. Generally, you're only going to have one choice of a disaster. And I went kind of quick, so let me go back. So I'm on the Tools page, and I click on Shelter Ops. When I click on Shelter Ops, the one disaster I see in this list is the one that I'm assigned to. But if I am in the sandbox, there will be other ones there. But this is the one that we're going to be using, and there's only one shelter open. But if there were multiple shelters open, all of them would be in this list. So if I'm a client care worker, let's say I'm Disaster Health Services, and I want to see, are there referrals for clients who are staying at this shelter? I'm going to open the shelter. And again, we clicked on Shelter Ops to get there. And this is the main screen for what is called Shelter Ops. There's a button in the middle called Referral Log. That's the one that we're going to click on. Once I open Referral Log, I can see that there are different tabs at the top, and there's a number next to each tab. So there's Disaster Disability Integration, and there's a client named Shin Lu and a client named Alex Rose who both have referrals. If I click on this next tab, Disaster Health Services, I see that there are also two referrals, one for a client named Joseph Norman, and again, one for a client named Alex Rose. Disaster Mental Health has 0, Disaster Spiritual Care has 2, Shelter Resident Transition has 1, Shelter Manager has 0, and then there's also one called Other. Client care workers will only need to be focused on those activities within your group. So let's say that we are spiritual care and we're working at this shelter, or maybe we're working at headquarters, but we have been directed by our leadership to stay on top of what referrals have been received at this particular shelter. So we know that there are 2 for spiritual care. We can see when they were submitted, and we can also see that each one has a status. The status of submitted means that someone in the shelter created this referral, and it's waiting for the activity to receive it. So I'm going to click on View Details for client Joseph Norman, and I can see additional details. So the referral specifically says client wants to speak with spiritual care worker about the needs of a family member. I have the ability to change the status. So if I'm going to be taking action on this, or I'm a supervisor or manager within this activity, and I'm going to be delegating to perhaps a spiritual care worker who's on their way to that shelter, I can accept that referral, and I'm just going to click on that and click on Confirm New Status. We can see that it's been updated. So now the referral status says accepted by activity. We can see which user accepted it and when. I'm going to close these details, And now we see that the status has been updated here as well, which can be very helpful when there's a longer list of referrals. Let's do the same thing on this disaster spiritual care tab for client Shin Lu. I'm going to click on View Details so I can see the details of the referral. The details are client has lost or damaged an item related to their spiritual or faith activities. Let's say that for whatever reason, the spiritual care worker already connected with this client and already resolved this issue. Then we could even just bypass accepted by activity and perhaps choose resolved. Or maybe perhaps this is a duplicate and two different shelter workers submitted the same referral. Then perhaps the activity would choose canceled. Each activity has its own internal guidance of who's taking which actions and which statuses will be updated. But it's important for client care workers to know that it's very informative and helpful for shelter workers to at the very least know that it has been accepted by the activity. Otherwise, the shelter manager may be monitoring this and then verbally work with their supervisor, headquarters sheltering manager, to give them a friendly reminder about clients who have needs that were referred that don't appear to have been anyone have taken any action on them. So I'm going to close these details and we'll just do this one last time. Let's go to disaster health services. So we can see that there's a client named Joseph Norman. We'll view his details. His referral details are replacement medication. We can change that status, accepted by activity, and confirm. There are many other aspects about using SCIA, and you're encouraged to go to the SCIA toolkit to watch an overview of how perhaps the client intake process works. You can also learn about navigating a client record. Why don't we open up Joseph Norman's, and I'll just quickly scroll down. If you are perhaps a health services worker, you're likely already familiar with the CMIST. We can scroll down, and in that client record, we can see the entire history of all of their referrals. And there's other details that are also visible on this page. We hope that this was helpful and informative. Again, you can always email sheltering@redcross.org, but you're definitely encouraged to contact your supervisor in advance because quite likely they would be interested to know in the questions you're asking and may know the answers as well. Thank you for all you do. Client care is such an important partner to sheltering, and have a wonderful day.